it's time for our third suffix lesson. We've been learning about suffixes. Suffixes are endings that go on the end of words that change the word a little bit and adds an extra sound to the word. Mostly we have focused on the ed ending. And my whole goal in teaching you about this particular suffix is for you to hear the 3 different sounds ed can make at the end of a word. I'm teaching you this because you come across the ed ending every day when you read and often when you write. It's important to know how to spell that ending and how to hear it and know what the letters are that actually are making that sound, because they're making 3 different sounds depending on the word. So far we've said ed can sound like d, like called, played, rolled. Spelled ed sounds like d. We said ed can sound like t. That's a weird one. Spelled ed, there's no t in the word at all, but it sounds like a t sound. Washed, cooked, pushed. When we say those words, we say a t sound, but we do not spell it with a t. Today we're going to be looking at words that sound like id at the end. Id. Now, here, the sound is spelled id, but when we actually write words that have that sound at the end, we're not spelling it with an id, we're spelling it with an ed, just like all these. A word like counted doesn't just say d at the end, and it certainly doesn't say t at the end. It actually says id, right? Count, id. It's a whole other sound. Folded is the same way. It doesn't say folded or folded. It says fold, id, folded. So it sounds like id, but it's spelled ed. Another example is wanted. See how that little dog, he wants that bone. The dog wanted the bone. I noticed that want ends with a T, just like count ends with a T. When a word, the root word, ends with a T, we're often going to hear ed sound like id at the end. Counted, wanted, waited. You hear the T at the end of the root word, and then the ed ending sounds like id. Same with D, when the root word, here's the root word, the base word that we started with, when that word ends with D, we'll hear id at the end of the word. Another example of that would be braided. She braided her hair. When the root word, here's braid, ends with D, and we add ed, then we get an id sound at the end of the new word that has the suffix on it. Okay, so now we know the suffix, that's a word ending, the suffix ed can sound 3 different ways. This was very confusing for a lot of us because when I asked you in the 2 weeks past to add words to Seesaw, you weren't really hearing the endings. You got the ed spelling right, but you weren't hearing whether it was making a d or t or id sound at the end. This is something that's going to come up on tests for you. It's going to come up in your reading and your writing. So it's really important that you hear those endings and you listen all the way to the end of the word to hear what sound it's making. So today on Seesaw, you actually get to sort words that have an ed ending. So you're going to have a section that says d, a section that says t, and the section that says id. Your job will be to put the word in the right section depending on the ending. So I have an example here. What if I said, which category would you put this word in? The word is turned. What do you hear at the end? Turned. Turned. Does that end with d, t, or id? They all end with ed. They're all going to have the same spelling at the end. Your job is to hear the sound at the end. Hopefully you said turned goes in this category, sounds like d. Let's do two more. How about this one? This one says looked. Looked. Do you hear which sound it's making at the end? Looked. Does it sound like d, t, or id? Sounds like t, right? Another reason I really want you to know and to listen to these is because if you're having trouble reading a longer word like this, you can chunky monkey that word, cover up that ending sound, so you're only looking at the root word, which is the word that is the main word before the ed. Now, I know that says look. I know that because it's a sight word. It was harder for me to read when it looked like this, but now it's easier to read. When you see a word that has a suffix like this, an ending like this, it's a really good idea to cover it up so you can solve this part of the word first and then say the d sound or t or id, depending on what sound the ed makes at the end of that particular word. All right, last one. This says, well, let's cover this up. It says paint. Ed at the end makes it say painted. Painted. Do you hear which sound it's making? Does it sound like d, t, or id? Painted. Sounds like id, painted. And we know that the root word has a t on the end, so that is a good indicator that it'll say id at the end. All right, on Seesaw, your job is to sort the words depending on what sound you hear at the end when you read the ed part. Good luck.